So I stumbled upon this method of drafting my bustier by accident. I was researching, I was trying new things, and I came across this. And with this, you don't need to even calculate for your underbust or your overbust. So if you want to experiment with me, go ahead and take these measurements, and these are the only measurements you need, and then let's begin. So to start my pattern, I'll start from the top of my paper and measure down my vertical measurements. I'll start with my shoulder to nipple, which is 10 inches. Then I'll go to my shoulder to underbust, which is 13. And then I'll measure shoulder to waist, which is 16. At this point, we'll stop at the waist. Okay. Then I'll just move my tape measure to another angle at an interval so that I'll repeat the same measurements. My shoulder to nipple, my shoulder to underbust, and then my shoulder to waist. This is so I can connect the points to give me straight lines across, like straight horizontal lines. Go ahead and label the lines for easy identification. The top one is my bust line, and then my underbust line and my waistline. Now let's move on to creating our shoulder line. So on our shoulder line, that's the top, we'll measure half of our shoulder to shoulder measurement. Mine is 7.5, and I'm going to use that mark to create a straight vertical line. This line is what is going to use this is what we are going to use to serve as a guide to creating our armhole. On that line from the top, come down 1 inch, and then from the center front, come in by 3 inches for your neck width. Then join those 2 points to get your shoulder line. Now from the slope, you want to measure down your armhole depth. My armhole depth, I used my bust divided by 6, then I added 1.5. Then it gave me 7.5, so I measured down 7.5 and squared out from that point. This serves as my armhole line. Now on that line that we did, we are going to find the midpoint of it between our shoulder tip to the armhole line. We'll find the midpoint, then come in from that midpoint by 1/2 inch. We will let it sit for now while we move to other things. Now we are going to create the frame for our body. We'll be making use of our waistline and our underbust line alone. So on our waistline, we are going to measure our half of our waist. Mine is 6.75, and then I'm going to add a quarter to that, making it 7, because the front is typically larger than the back. So on my underbust line too, I'm going to divide my underbust by 4, and then whatever I get, I'm going to place it on my underbust line and then add a quarter to it. Now connect your waist to your underbust, extend the line all the way to your armhole line. This creates the frame for your body. Okay, so we are now going to create our bust from within this frame. Now let's go ahead and establish our nipple to nipple point. We'll divide our nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I mark mine is 3.5. I made a mistake initially and marked 3, so ignore that extra point. But it's 3.5. Then I did the same at my waistline, then join those two to form my nipple to nipple line. Let's find the midpoint of our shoulder line. I just placed my tape measure on the line, folded it into 2 to get that midpoint. You can just measure your shoulder line and divide it into 2. That either way works. Just find the midpoint. Now we are going to connect that point directly to our apex point or our nipple point. Now what we are going to do is take our tape measure on the bust line, measure from the center front to our side seam. Whatever you get there, I got 8. You want to record that 8 down. On my bust, my current bust is 8. And then my original bust, that's my actual bust divided by 4. My bust is 35. So my bust divided by 4 will give me 8.35. And then I added quarter because it's the front part. The front is typically bigger. So instead of 8.35, it's going to be 9 inches, which means my bust required here is 9 inches. And mind you, remember when we measured, we got 8 inches, but what we actually need is 9 inches. So this is my actual bust, which is 9, and my current bust, which is 8. We want to find the difference, which is 1 inches. Now that 1 inch, you are going to divide it into 2, which is half, and then on each side of the line you place that half. So on the left side you mark half, and then the right side you mark half. Now, contrary to the position of the point, this point belongs to the side front, and then that point belongs to the center front. They intersect, okay? And you see how shortly. Go ahead and grab your curve and connect those points back to the intersection on the underbust line, just as you're seeing in the video. Now you're going to connect from the same point all the way to my neckline to hit my shoulder line. Okay, now this neckline, I came up by just 3 inches. You can go higher if you want. I came up from the bust point by 3 inches, or you can also measure from the top down by 7 inches, and that's also fine depending on how low or high you want your neckline. Now the outline I just did indicates my center front panel. Then we are going to go ahead and create the side panel, repeating the same process. So on the outer line, I'm going to connect it also back to my underbust point. That's the intersection. And then I'm going to also connect from there. This time I'll connect with a curve because the side is usually curvier than the center front panel. So I'm just going to connect it with a curve like this. And that side also indicates my side front panel. So from my neckline on my center front, I'm going to come down by 2 inches to create my sweetheart neckline. Now connect it back to my shoulder point. Here you can deal with the shape however you want. That's up to you. Now for my side, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, just so it's not all up into my armpit. So I'm just coming down by 1 inch and connecting it with a curve back to my neckline point. Now because my center front slopes down, it's more of a U shape, I'm going to come down by 4 inches, which I realized was too long for me regarding what I wanted to wear it with. So I just came down 4 inches here, but in actual fact I reduced it later on, making it 2.5 inches. So it depends on how long you want this to be. So here we made it 4 inches. Then afterwards we are going to take our ruler and connect the line all the way to the hem. I'm just indicating the side with the red pen to be easier to identify. So that's my side front, and the blue part represents my center front. Let's finish up our armhole, just in case you want to use this for a yoke or something other than just a regular tube like sweetheart neckline. Maybe you want to add something to the top, you just finish the neckline for that. In that case, I'll go ahead and take a quarter on each side of this line and connect it back to the shoulder point. That is, if you are making a yoke that you want to use a fabric like tulle, a net, or any stretchy fabric. For a stable fabric, you can leave it like that, but for a net or something that has a little bit of stretch, take out this quarter inches. Okay. Now I'm just going to put my paper on another paper so that I can trace out my panel. I'm going to start by tracing my front panel, and when I'm done, I'll trace out my side panel. Now, because our center front extended beyond our nipple to nipple measurement, we had excess there now. So I have about half an inch excess. It's supposed to be 3.5, but I have 4 here, meaning I have half an inch excess. I'm going to take that half an inch along the seam of my center front panel. So I'll mark half an inch all throughout from the top to the bottom. This is what my center front panel looks like. It will be cut on fold. Let's move on to tracing our side front. So we are going to repeat the same thing we did for the center front. We are going to trace out the side front as well. So pay attention here. The same amount you took out from the center front panel, we are going to take that same amount. Instead of taking it out, we are adding it to the side. So we are going to add it along all the way down. Now we'll take our center front panel and then match the lines on our side panel. We are going to chew the seams to be sure that we have an equal length, that when we join, one will be longer. So the side front seems to be longer, so I just mark the excess that I have there. Then we measure the amount. I measured and mine was 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to write on my front panel 3/4 of an inch so that when I'm cutting on my fabric, I'll extend it before adding my allowances. So our front is done. We're just going to cut the side out and then move to the back. Now to draft my back, I'm going to align my center front to the edge of my paper, and then I'm going to bring my side front, making sure the underbust line and then the waist line meet together. They are not overlapping from the underbust point to the waist point. No, they are just meeting each other. But then when you look at the top, you realize the curves overlap as they should. Now go ahead and trace out your side with your pencil, and then mark the top edge mark all your lines, transfer all your lines to your back pattern. Now connect your waistline, and then on the neckline you're going to come and then connect it all the way to the other point. Now you can decide here whether you want to slope your neckline lower or you want to keep it on a straight line. That's completely up to you. Now let's come to our bust line. We are going to measure our bust divided by 4 minus quarter. So my bust 35 divided by 4 will give me 8.75. Now if I take out quarter, that gives me 8.5, and as you can see, this is exactly 8.5. Now the waist, I'm going to measure my waist divided by 4 minus a quarter as well, and then mark that. Then I'm going to add 1 inch that's to it. Then you're going to join that all the way back to my bust point. To create my dart for the back, I'm going to find the midpoint of my waistline and I'll mark that. Then I'm going to use this point to connect a straight line all the way to my neckline. Now on that line, you are going to mark up or measure up 7 inches. Then on the waistline, mark ½ inch at both sides. That is the 1 inch we added for our dart intake. And you connect it back to the point you made at the top. So at this point, because my front length is longer than my back length, I'm going to take the excess and come up from the waist by that amount. So my shoulder to waist at the front is 16 and then that of the back is 14, so 14.5. So the difference would be 1.5. So I measured up from the waist 1.5. I'm just going to join that back to 0 at my side seam. To make it easier for me to work with, I went ahead and cut out the pattern so that I'll be able to fold my dart and then through my seam. So just cut out your pattern like this. I noticed taking all the 1.5 inch will make my center back very small, so I made it 1 inch instead, and I connected it back to 0 at the side seam. Now before you cut out, make sure you fold your dart over so that you'll be able to get both dart legs to meet at the end of the day. After folding it, this is what I got, so I went ahead and straightened that line out like this, and then you go ahead and cut it out. Now I'm not drawing this fold sign because it's on fold. I just made it so that I'll be able to tell the difference between my center back and my side seam. You can decide to hold a dart or you can slash and then close that. I am just closing my dart. Then my panels are done. I went ahead and cut it on my fabric and my line and to sew. Thank you.